For Jason Horejs, life has always been filled with art. In fact, art flows through his veins. Growing up in rural southern Idaho, Jason didn't realise how unusual his family was. His father, John Horejs, now a nationally recognised oil painter, had chosen to pursue an unlikely career as a fine artist, and in 1978 had moved the family into a single-wide trailer while setting out to build a large geodesic dome home in the countryside, homeschooling his children and leading an unconventional and extraordinary life. Though not interested in pursuing life as an artist, Jason fell in love with the business side of art at an early age. In 1991, at the age of 17, Jason began working for Legacy Gallery in Scottsdale, Arizona, where he learned the gallery business from the ground up. He handled logistics, shipping and installation, eventually working into the sales position at the Western Art Gallery. Fast forward 10 years, and in 2001, Jason and his wife Carrie opened Xanadu Gallery in Scottsdale. In spite of opening on September 11th into a completely changed art world, Jason built the gallery into a successful venture, showing dozens of artists and selling to collectors from around the world. Xanadu Gallery is a resource for collectors, designers, builders and corporations for procuring the highest quality art. Xanadu Gallery showcases outstanding artworks in a wide variety of media and styles. Over the years, as a gallery owner, Jason has received frequent requests from artists for personal career consultations and deeper guidance, seeing firsthand how artists struggle to sell their work and themselves. So on his quest to help more artists sell their work and approach galleries with confidence, Jason began to run limited one-day workshops, then write a book or two, and now an online multimedia learning environment through his Art Business Academy. We are extremely fortunate and grateful to Jason for sharing his time and wisdom with us today. So please get all your juicy art business questions ready and join me in welcoming Jason Horejs. Hello, Jason.
Hi, Angie. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. And yeah, so apologies to everyone. We were a couple of minutes late. Jason's computer had a little update to do. Don't you love that?
Right when you need it.
Yeah, I hate it when it does that. So how are things in Scottsdale this afternoon?
You know, they're wonderful. We've been busy, hard at work, and sharing a lot of art and just having a great time.
Fantastic. Well, I hope you enjoyed your intro. I really enjoyed reading the first few paragraphs of your books that are online. I'm very inspired to buy both of them, actually.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and thanks for the great introduction.
I loved it. I had, like, when I first invited you to be a Friday feature artist, I had no idea about, the lifestyle growing up, and I just discovered your book. I'll pop it up on the screen. Your book, A Dad Was an Artist, a survivor's story.
Yes, that subheading really, I think, puts it into focus. It was a unique childhood, some experiences I might not want to go through again, but certainly set me on a path that I'm very grateful to be on. And of course, I love my parents, and we just have a great time together.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I figured that the title was a little bit tongue-in-cheek.
Indeed.
Yeah, fantastic. I have got so many questions for you tonight, but I do want to remind everyone that's watching, please, this is a live because we want people to ask questions. We want this to be about our audience. And we're certainly not alone tonight. So you've got people from Victoria. Hi, Janine. Mary, hi Mary from Canberra, and the beautiful Lorna Crane, she's from coastal New South Wales. So Lorna is a contemporary Australian artist, exhibited all over the world. Jason, amazing.
I'm delighted to have you all here and be able to talk to you.
Yeah, and Linda's just around the corner.
There we go. Scottsdale.
Fantastic. And Alison's a professional artist over in New Zealand. So I think we're going to get a lot of professional artists tuning in today. Jane, hello from the UK. Hello. Melbourne, we're all in lockdown in Melbourne again, and New
Oh
South
boy.
Wales. So yeah, this is great to be able to have something to focus on. Mirrabelbark as usual. Susan says that because she's literally around the corner from me, so I always have a bit of a joke about that. I find that interesting, actually, that I actually find it more outstanding when somebody joins live and they're literally like 2 miles away rather than
Right.
the other side of the world. I actually go, oh, that's nice. You're from India. That's great. And I'm like, oh, Mirrabelbark. It's like,
Yep. It's good to make connections. And it's so cool that we live in a time when the technology makes it possible for us to really be part of a global neighborhood.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now we're going to get into the juicy side of art business, but I wanted to ask you, I did the slideshow, but in your own words, what was it like growing up in a non-conventional household, and how has that helped you now?
Yeah, it's funny because, of course, as a child, you don't realize, you don't know that you're in an unusual situation. It's just
Yeah.
your situation. And so we had a great childhood. What you didn't mention is that I am the oldest of my parents' 9 children. And so, that wasn't quite conventional either. And we just had a great time. My brothers and sisters and I are still very close. We very much had just an adventurous childhood. We got to travel a lot. We got to go to art shows. We got to meet amazing artists. And so, of course, that kind of laid the foundation for me being interested in art and ultimately pursuing a career in the art gallery business. And I will say that kind of the interesting side of it for me was that, growing up in a very unconventional situation as a teenager, teenagers often go through a kind of rebellious phase. I did as well. But my rebellion was that when I grew up, I wanted to have a conventional house with a white picket fence, 2.5 kids and a dog. I just wanted a normal life. To me, that was rebellion. And in some ways, that's kind of what has ended up happening. But certainly a life in the arts is a life of adventure, and I've loved every minute of it.
Oh, well, I can certainly relate. I was very much a rebellious child, certainly around those teenage years. And when we had children, my husband and I, my mum and dad were like, oh, they were rubbing their hands together, going, oh, this is going to
Yeah.
be fabulous. We're going to get our revenge. This is going to be great. You're now going to see. And my kids are so wonderful. Oh my God. Like they challenge us, but gosh, we got lucky. So isn't that funny how opposites happen?
Yep, it does. It does, certainly.
But I think it's nice to have a bit of rebel in everybody. I think that makes us even more creative.
Exactly. Yeah, and I do think of that as part of the creative spirit, is that willingness to kind of push and pull the boundaries and see what you can do and what you can create.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to me about that moment you put with your wife, Carrie. Am I pronouncing Carrie correctly?
You are, yes.
Yeah, great. You decided very early on that you guys were going to do a gallery, and you had a 10-year plan, and then you thought, why are we waiting? Let's just do it all in. And
Yeah.
did you build the gallery yourself? You actually built it, or was it
What happened was we were, we were young. I was 26 at the time. We decided to undertake the gallery, very naive. And so, we were in Scottsdale. We knew that that was where we wanted the gallery to be located. And so we started looking around for a good location. And what we found was a large upscale retail center that had just recently been constructed. And so we signed a lease there, and we were the first tenants to come into the space that we were going to be occupying. And so there was a building there, but we had to do all of the build outs to get it, into the state where it would be a functional gallery.
and this is it here?
That's actually our current location. We moved about 5 years after we opened in that location to the location that you're seeing on the screen, which is in downtown Scottsdale in the Arts District.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's a great space.
Yeah, gorgeous. So you've put it all in, you've made the commitment, and then you're driving to the gallery on your first day of opening. And the reason why I'm touching on this now is because
we're not in a similar situation, but I mean, globally, we're in a bit of turmoil. So you've seen it before. So we're just setting that scene of you're walking into the gallery, or you're driving to open your gallery, and you hear the news, September 11th, 2001.
Yeah, well, and we're coming up right now on the 20th anniversary of that, and so I think it's always been a little bit of a challenge for our business to celebrate anniversaries because it aligns with those terrible events. But you're right, it was a surreal experience to be, here we are, kind of having our dreams come true of being able to open a gallery, very excited about what the future holds. And it seemed like just, right at that moment, it all seemed to be snatched away. And, we were very concerned, of course, as all of us were. You just didn't know what the future held at that moment. And so, we went ahead and opened our gallery on that first day. And of course, we had no one in, and it was a very, kind of heart-wrenching situation. We're, of course, all watching and listening to the news. And in addition to all of the emotions I'm sure everyone felt, we were just wondering, what are we going to do? How do we, we made a huge commitment in terms of the lease that we've signed and the investment that we've made to get the gallery up and running. And you just didn't know if people were really going to be interested or paying attention to art for, in the foreseeable future. And so, fortunately, very quickly, within the next day, we had our first customer come into the gallery and make a purchase. And what we have come to realize from that experience, from the experience that we had in the global financial crisis in 2007, 2008, and now in the pandemic, is that really, I guess I can't say no matter what is happening, but I'll say that in spite of some very difficult circumstances, there are still people out there who just love art. They know they want art in their lives. They know they want to be a part of the art community and support artists. And so they are going to continue to seek out and buy artwork. And we're able to thereby survive these challenges and push through. And what we have also always seen is that, certainly we don't look for those challenges. We don't want them to come, but it seems like each time we've overcome those challenges, we've come back stronger. We've learned new things. We've had to be creative to allow our business to adapt and survive. And all of that and the experience we've gained has then set us in a position where we've been able to build a successful gallery and, not only support our gallery and ourselves and our staff, but a large community of artists that we represent and whose work we're able to sell. So we feel very fortunate, and, just keep pushing forward no matter what's happening.
Yeah, I love that. And reading that first little snippet of your book as well, and you explained how things looked dire straits, and the lady walked in and she just said, I needed something beautiful in my life right now. Yeah.
I mean, as I think about that experience after September 11th, I mean, it always makes me just a little bit emotional to think about that moment when we didn't know that things were going to be okay, but we just could see how important the artwork is.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, anyone out there listening that's an artist or a gallery owner, hang in there. Like, there's serious healing powers in it. Yeah, whether you're creating it or selling it or gifting it. Yeah, for sure. So today is all about getting into the nitty gritty and maybe offering some practical advice to people out there wanting to sell their art. And I'm assuming that this advice, Jason, is universal or global. The art scene in Scottsdale, Arizona may not be that different to, say, Melbourne or Sydney or, England, but the principle of selling art.
That's right. I mean, there are certainly going to be local and regional unique circumstances and maybe some different approaches to some aspects of the business. But the core principles are, as you say, universal. I mean, I'd like to think that they would work on Proxima Centauri if we were to hop in a spaceship and travel there. I mean, the principles of building relationships and, sharing beauty, creating experiences and stories, those are something that everyone can understand. And, I hope that the insights that I can provide would be just as applicable to your audience, no matter where they might be located.
Fantastic. Well, I'll start by asking some questions, and it'll get the conversation happening around the art business side of things. But I do welcome people, if you're listening, if you've got a question, please ask Jason. No question is silly. No question's too big or small. We'll just go with it. I ask silly questions all the time, so sometimes
give them to us.
Yeah, shoot. So on your website, on the front page of your Art Business Academy site, you've listed the core principles to achieve success in the art world. So I thought that would be a great place to start, Jason, but I'm also happy for you to jump in at any time and go, and you know what, this is a common question I always get asked, and I'd love to share that. So
sure.
Shall we start with quality? That's the first dot point on your website that says this is to achieve success in the art world, you need quality. How does someone get to a place of quality?
Yeah, it really is a foundational principle. And if we kind of think about the experience that your client is going to be having as they first encounter your artwork, start exploring it, start thinking about how it might fit into their home space or a business space, realistically, we know that our clientele, in order to have the means to purchase artwork, has attained a certain level of success in their life, or is working toward that success, or just has a great love of the visual aesthetics. And so, we need to assume that they're going to be looking at our artwork with a critical eye, that they're going to want to make sure that it is up to their discerning standards. And so, as an artist is thinking about the quality of their work, I would really encourage the artist to step into the shoes of the collector and try and be objective about the work. And I'd also encourage you to invite some truly objective observers into your studio. If you could get a gallery owner or an interior designer or even another artist whose work you feel has attained a certain level of quality that you aspire to, get them into your studio and get some feedback about your presentation and the quality of your work. But what we're aiming for is that as your potential buyer is encountering the artwork, they're not going to run into any hangups where they're saying, "Oh boy, I love the look of this work, but the finish isn't quite what I would want it to be, or the mounting system doesn't look good, or the back of this piece isn't attractive." We just want to realize that the collector is going to encounter that work, and in some ways, and I know it's almost sacrilegious to say this, but to a certain extent, they're experiencing it as a product that you are producing for them. And we just want to make sure that that product is up to the highest standards that we can attain. And I'm always interested, as I'm talking to very successful artists, artists who I would look at their work and say, well, this artist has arrived. They're producing beautiful work. They've got collectors around the world. They're selling for, tens of thousands of dollars. They don't need to think about quality anymore. And yet, as I'm having conversations with them, that's exactly what they're talking about. I would describe them as perfectionists, that they're never quite satisfied with the quality of the work and just want to be constantly striving to improve that work and kind of get it up to their ideal standard, which they may be chasing forever.
That's something my husband says to me all the time. And you're never happy. It's because I'm striving to, it's not that I'm not happy. It's just that I know we can do better.
That's right. Yeah. And, at some point you do have to say, well, I do need to get this out into the world and I need to start getting experience for it. And so there's a little bit of a balancing act of striving for that perfection while at the same time realizing I need to have the work out there and I need to have people seeing it so I can know what else I need to be working on. Sometimes I'm too close to the work to attain that objectivity that I'm looking for.
Yeah, that really resonated with me when you said, get someone else, within your circle of influence, and someone you trust, a mentor, a friend, that can look at your work with objective eyes, because you are often too close to it.
Yeah, and plead with them. Don't hold back. The smallest thing that you see that you might think could be improved, any suggestion that you have is incredibly valuable to me. Don't worry about my feelings or my thoughts. Now, be sure to say, I'm interested in your feedback, about the work itself, but not so much about composition or color or technical aspects. I'm really looking for the presentation and the quality of this art product that I'm producing. And you'll be amazed how getting that outside perspective gives you new insight into the quality of the work that you're producing.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a few more questions, just side questions based on what you were saying. Collectors. Okay. In your experience, is there a certain buyer persona of what a collector is? So when I think of someone who's buying high-end art, I think rich, famous, fancy hotels. These are just some of the things that are coming to mind.
They're pulling up in a Lamborghini and wearing furs and all those kinds of things.
Is that reality? Or
it's not, not to say, obviously, over the years, we've had the opportunity to work with that kind of clientele, and we have worked with some celebrities and some folks who have attained an incredible level of wealth. But if I look at the breadth of my collector base and the customers that I've worked with, it would be very difficult to come up with an avatar of your average collector, because there's just such a diversity, and we want to be a little bit careful. I would, well, let me put it this way: as I'm having folks come into my gallery, I'm seeing a very wide range of visitors. And I never want to prejudge someone that's coming into the gallery. I'm going to treat each and every person who walks through that door in precisely the same way. That is, I'm going to give them a courteous welcome, warm. In my gallery, we really strive to be very engaged, to talk about the art, to learn about the person who's coming through the door. And you just kind of never know. I can point to an experience I had just this last Friday in my gallery. I'm actually in Pine Top, which is in northeastern Arizona right now. We have a summer gallery up here where we escape the hellacious summer heat of Phoenix. And so there was a car that pulled up in the front of the gallery. The car did not say wealthy, it was a small import. 3 ladies got out. They very easily could have been artists. In fact, I think at least one of them was an artist. And they just looked like they were having a delightful time and out to enjoy a little bit of art. And it would have been very easy to look at them and dismiss them and say, they're not going to buy art, or if they do, it's just going to be something small. And the danger in doing that is that you miss the opportunity to build a relationship and to engage with them about the artwork. And I had a delightful time talking to them, introduced them to the artist, told them some biographical information about some of the artists. And they found one of the 3 women in particular fell in love with a pedestal top sculpture, a glass and painted sculpture that we have. We started talking about it, and I told her, hey, if you love that piece, I'd be delighted to wrap it up for you and get it ready to go. And even then, to a certain extent, in my mind, I'm thinking, nah, it won't happen. And she said, well, I need to think about it a little bit. And then she said, no, you know what? I'm going to take it. This was not an incredibly expensive, but it was a nearly $2,000 sculpture.
Yeah.
And a great sale for a Friday afternoon. And I just loved working with her and learning a little bit about her and helping her with this art. So I really avoid trying to guess. Now, there are some, obviously, as we're thinking about marketing artwork and where we're going to be investing advertising dollars, we do want to optimize those investments to be targeting the best potential audience, that we possibly can. But the beauty of all of those efforts today is that we can do advertising through Facebook, social media advertising, or Instagram, and reach a really broad audience for a fairly small investment, and not have to be quite as selective in our audience targeting and in our investment of advertising. So in essence, my goal as a gallery owner, and as I'm thinking about marketing, I really want to sell to everyone that we possibly can. And short of that, I really want to encourage folks who are visiting the gallery to sign up for our email list. That has become a critical part of our business, is having a very strong, very deep, extensive mailing list that we stay in frequent communication with. We send out an email every single week to our email list. And it's amazing how that engagement has increased dramatically our visitorship to the gallery and also our sales. And so, it's just kind of, we do everything we can with everyone that we can all the time.
Yes, I totally agree with you how powerful an email list is. I feel like people get caught up with likes and followers, but they don't actually realize the power of an email list. And Facebook could be gone tomorrow. Let's hope that it's not. I mean, we find it a very powerful tool as well. But an email list you have,
yeah.
So
if I say that I'm a gallery owner, but if I think about what I really own as a gallery owner, I lease my gallery space. The artwork is here mostly on consignment. I own a few sticks of furniture and that kind of thing. But what I really own is the relationships that I have with my collectors and that client list. Those are the most valuable assets that we have as a business.
When an artist is looking for gallery representation, is that an important question? Or, I mean, I don't know what the best practices are when approaching, but one of my questions would be, what is your clientele like? What sort of email list do you have? Like, that would be one of my top questions from a marketing perspective. I understand the power of email.
Yeah.
Is that a valid question to ask, or is that a rude question to ask?
Yeah, no. Well, let me put it this way. As I'm working with artists who are maybe they're looking to get into their first gallery. Maybe they haven't shown with a well-established commercial gallery up to this point.
Yep.
The experience that artist is going to have and their criteria for what they're looking for in a gallery is going to be different than it would be for an artist who is very well established and has multiple galleries. And probably that more established artist is going to be asking more questions as they're interacting with the gallery. A first-time artist who's getting into galleries is going to go a little bit broader and is going to be realizing that they're looking not only for representation, but they're looking to gain some experience and exposure, and probably is not going to be asking quite as many questions. You're going to be looking to build a relationship, and it really is. I encourage artists and gallery owners to think of the gallery artist relationship as a partnership. It is a business partnership. We're going into business together to promote and sell and market your work. And so, yes, it is important that the gallery have a good list and have a good, system in place. But in those initial relationships with galleries, I would encourage you to first and foremost be looking for the relationship. Are you able to interact with the gallery owner in a natural way? Are they interested in your work and excited and enthusiastic about it? Is the gallery well put together, and are they carrying artists whose work you admire? If you've got those things in place, that's going to be my initial criteria for maybe my first and second galleries. And then I start to get a little more selective as I get beyond that.
Nice. Very nice. I know I can certainly resonate with that as well when we're working with our artists that we choose. We call it collaboration. We always go with the relationship first. Can we get along? We're going to be working together. It's going to be highs and lows. We're going to be stressed at times, but we're going to work through it. We're all going to be, working through all of those things when we're filming, when we're creating courses. And, at the end of the day, if you've got that strong relationship, it just makes the experience beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Talk to me about branding and personal branding as an artist. So when I think of artists like Lorna Crane, she has a very unique style, and she could pop anything up online and you go, oh, that's a Lorna Crane.
That's right.
How do artists get to that point, and how important is it?
Yeah, it is very important, but we need to realize that as you look around at very well-established artists, that they weren't born that way, right? They had to work for it, and their work has evolved over time. Certainly, we talked about quality as being a cornerstone for an artist to strive for. Consistency in artwork is another one. And again, we got to kind of think about the life cycle of the artist. As an artist is getting started, it's very natural to want to experiment and try different things. You're going to see different work, and it's going to influence you and inspire you. And, that's valuable and valid. One of my, key suggestions to an artist is that if you're trying to think about what to create, you shouldn't be chasing after what you think might be trendy or popular. You should instead be creating work that is personally exciting to you, that you can feel passionate about. And if you can do that and kind of work towards having all of your experimentation and different opportunities to create, if you can kind of be channeling that towards narrowing your focus over time to be creating more and more consistent work, what's going to happen is that you're going to go from an experimentation phase to a phase where you're working toward mastery, where your subject matter and style and techniques are going to become more and more cohesive and coherent. And I know that can sound a little bit scary to some artists, that you think that might be boxing you in. But what you're losing in maybe the breadth of your creative experience, you're going to really gain in depth in terms of really being able to explore your subject and your medium and your technique, to learn the subtleties and the qualities of what you're doing. And as you do that and strive to be creating more consistent work, you're going to be able to build a body of work that becomes more and more attractive to collectors and to galleries. For a gallery, as I'm thinking about looking at an artist's work, yes, I am initially looking for a kind of an emotional reaction to that work. How does this work strike me? Is it interesting and engaging? But I'm also having to think about, the logistics of the business. If we begin to promote and sell this artist's work, and if our clientele starts to respond to it and collect that work, am I going to be able to replace sold work? Am I going to be able to get more of this artist's work? And so a gallery owner is going to pay a lot of attention as they're looking through your portfolio to the consistency of that work and how the work ties together. They're also going to, realistically be thinking about, if I've got a gallery space where I'm going to be showing this work, how well will it all show together? What kind of overall impact is it going to give? And so the more you can strive to having a cohesive body of work, the stronger the response you're going to get from it, and the more likely you are to engender collectors.
I think that's great advice. And certainly from your perspective as well, you're right. Having, you're going to be selling great work. So making sure that you can replace that. Yes. Yeah. Something I never really considered before. I was like, oh, you sell something and it's like, okay, next. It's like, well, actually, no, you've built that relationship with the artist. You want to continue, like, I don't want to like stocking their work, but
we keep dancing around those words, right? Product, stocking, marketing. I mean, it's starting to sound a little bit like business. And, we're in a unique business. Art is a unique, here I'm going to say it again, product. It's handcrafted. There's a lot more that's going into it than a widget or a television or something like that. But the more we kind of acknowledge the business realities of what we're doing, if that's our aim, if our aim is to build a sales base and to build a business around it, the sooner we can acknowledge that there are business realities that we need to attend to, ironically, that starts to allow us to have more freedom to be able to create as the sales are generated and we have the relationships going. It opens up new vistas for an artist to pursue success.
Beautiful. Certainly resonating with people. What a great list of early criteria. Lorna agrees that relationships are so essential. And she also asked the question, do you let your artists take risks to grow?
Yeah, I would maybe rephrase that a little bit, because if you say, do you let your artists, it almost sounds like I've got them chained away in a dungeon somewhere. And every once in a while, I'll let them try something new. And again, really, it's not like that so much as it is just a kind of an ongoing conversation that we're having in a partnership. And yes, certainly over time, the artists that I've worked with, and I have some artists that we have represented from day one. So I've been working with these artists for 20 years now. And if you were to look at their work 20 years ago and the work now, certainly you would see dramatic differences in that work. And you only get that by having an artist try some new things and experiment and push boundaries. But what we want to be careful about is that, in every case that I can think of, it has tended to be a more incremental evolution that has occurred, where maybe the artist has done something wild and crazy and experimental in the studio and has said, well, this is interesting, but they've held it back. They haven't maybe included it in their body of work that they're sharing with the public at this point. Maybe they'll say, this is something I want to explore more and I want to work toward, but I can't risk making a dramatic change and alienating my current collector base and my galleries. I need to be really conscious of that process. And so it does tend to be more incremental. And I think what is also important to think about is that it's not, or at least successful art is not a one-way communication where the artist is in the studio creating work in a vacuum and never hears anything back from their galleries or the collectors. I'm often having conversations with artists and they're asking me, what are people responding to in my work? What's most interesting to them? What work is getting the most attention? And that kind of flow of information back from the gallery, or certainly when an artist is having a show at the gallery and able to interact directly with collectors, my more successful artists are taking that information in and allowing it to be a part of their creative process and allowing a dialogue to kind of come up between them and their collectors.
So the gallery owner is like the eyes and the ears. You're the conduit between the buyer and the artist. And I think that's wonderful, excuse me, to get that feedback to and fro. Yeah, sign of a good gallery owner.
Yes, and we're also fortunate to be in an age where an artist can even get some more direct feedback through their social media contacts. Artists who are participating in shows can be right there. But you're right. As a gallery owner, I really do have an opportunity to serve as an intermediary between the artist and the collector.
Wonderful. Talk to me about pricing. How do I price my work, Jason? I don't know. There's so many hours have gone into it, but I want it to sell. Oh.
It is for sure, one of the biggest challenges and greatest mysteries of the art business, how to set your pricing. I completely understand how it can be a huge challenge. Again, I would encourage us to have a business mindset. And if you think about a developer of a new product that's going to be coming to market, let's just take it as not an art product, but they're developing something new that's going to be coming to market. And you will find that as they're doing that and as they're working on pricing, they're going to be doing a lot of market research. And one of the key things that they're going to be looking at is, how are my competitors pricing their similar products? And in a lot of ways, as an artist, I would encourage you to do a very similar thing, and that is spend some good time researching your fellow artists. I don't like to think of them as much as competitors, but who are some other artists out there who are doing work that's going to appeal to a similar audience? What are they doing in terms of the presentation of their work? How are they talking about the work in their artist statement, in their biography? And how are they pricing their work? And boy, you can very quickly start to get a much better sense of the range where your price should be as you do that research. And you want to be careful, to be looking at artists who are showing in venues that you aspire to show in. And see how they're pricing their work. And a lot of times you can kind of do some reverse engineering and uncover the formula that they have developed for pricing their work. Does it seem to be tied to the size of the work? Is it tied to the materials? Is it tied to the complexity of the work? And how can I then go back to my work and try to develop a similar formula for the work? I will tell you that in my interaction with artists and in the research that I have done of artists who maybe are not yet showing in galleries or are early in their career, there is a real tendency among the vast majority of these artists to undervalue and consequently underprice their work. And that's understandable. As you're getting started in the market, the tendency is to think, well, I need to be competitive. And if I'm priced lower, I'm going to sell better. But that is just not the case. If you undervalue and underprice your work, instead of making it competitive, what you're doing is sending a signal to a potential buyer that your work is not as good. And that might not be true at all. But as a collector is looking at your work and comparing it to other work that they've seen, if your work is radically underpriced, they can't help but ask themselves, what's wrong with this work? Or is this artist not very good or not very well established? And so we want to be very careful about that. And when it comes to pricing, I would urge an artist to really put some effort into considering the venues where they would like to be showing their work. Where do I want my work to be showing? And those venues should help direct the pricing of your artwork. If I come into a well-established gallery and I'm presenting a portfolio and my prices are a tenth of their average prices, the gallery is just going to have a very hard time making your work fit in. And so, I wish I could give you an easy answer and say, here's the algebraic formula to come up with a perfect price for your artwork, but it's going to vary depending on your media and your subject. And it's going to vary depending on the venues that you're showing in. But we want to target our pricing to the venues that we aspire to and that we want to work towards showing our work in.
Yeah, fantastic advice. I'd like to add a little bit to that as well, just from our business perspective. I mean, when we first started selling online courses, we were very tempted to play it safe and do it really cheap. And then actually a professional artist said to us, "And you sound like this is like, if you do that, that is way too cheap. This is professional artists. This is a lifetime worth of work." So we put a price on that slightly terrified us. And we were like, oh, I don't know. And we've honestly, it's not for everyone, and we understand that, but I refuse to undervalue the life's work of the people that we represent. And by putting a little high price on it keeps us accountable to keep pushing.
That's right.
Better, keep getting satisfied customers and students, and people keep coming back and repeat customers. So we know, I just thank the artists that gave us that advice every day, that we didn't play it safe, because sometimes you've got to take a risk and go, you know what do you stand for? We stand for valuing the art and the artists that we represent as well. We need to draw that line in the sand. Yeah.
Well, and I think that there is a real temptation, and you've alluded to it here, and especially, and let's just face it, it's a little bit of a stereotype for artists, right? That we're starving, we're struggling. It's very hard to make sales happen. And so, consequently, when that is the case, we tend to think with our own wallet and feel like, boy, if I'm trying to sell a piece of artwork for $1,000, I could never imagine paying that much for somebody's artwork. And so then we start to get into this mindset and think that the same thing is true of our collectors. And we just need to realize that that's not the reality, and that in fact, it is a pleasure for our collectors to be able to invest their hard-earned income into great works of art, and that part of the pleasure is that they have bought something that is somewhat exclusive and that is at a higher price point. You don't notice them driving around in old clunker cars that they got a great deal on, because that's not what they're looking for. They have the ability to attain these higher values, and they want to do the same thing with the art.
Yeah, fantastic. Alison's a professional artist over in New Zealand, and she's saying practical and sensible, down to earth advice, and being an artist who has run a gallery. I agree with everything you were saying. Oh, that's wonderful.
Thank you, Alison.
That's great. Oh, no problems, Shane. Not a problem at all.
But we're not done yet.
We're not done yet. Jason, keep going. Digital portfolios was the next on the list of dot points on your website. I'd like to ask you how important it is, one, to have an individual website that showcases information about you, but then also the power of social media, and how would you differentiate the two? So like a professional website to your social media account, should they be aligned? Is there different audiences on either? How do you see them working together?
Yeah, it's a great question. And really, this is an area that has evolved during the course of my career in the art world. When I started in the business, the internet was nascent. Very few artists had websites yet. Social media didn't exist. And so we've watched all of these new tools become available. It's presented some challenges, certainly, but also some great opportunities. And so I think it's really important to distinguish. I do encounter artists, and we'll have a conversation about portfolio or website or social media. And there can be this sense that, well, I only have to do one or the other. If I've got a website, I'm good. Or if I have a social media account, I'm good. I really see them as tools that can be harmonious with one another, certainly, and can play into one another, but they all have their distinct role. And I do encourage an artist to create a separate and distinct digital portfolio that's even separate from your website. Your website is an opportunity to showcase the range of artwork that you have available, to potentially even sell artwork, to share your background, and can be a very powerful tool that we drive people to through social media and other marketing efforts. But I would encourage you to even have a separate PDF portfolio that is 20 to 25, 30 pages, that is just your artwork with the title, medium, size, price, and is self-contained. And the reason I suggest that, and this is especially important if your goal is to get into galleries, is because you want to be able to control and encourage the experience that a gallery owner is going to have. And often that portfolio might then be shared with collectors. And a self-contained PDF portfolio is a great way to do that. Everybody has a website, and sharing a link to a website with a gallery owner really is not going to make much of an impression. But as I share a self-contained portfolio, the message that I am serious and I'm looking for representation comes across, and it allows the gallery to see your most recent work without having maybe the clutter that can come with a website, and a variety of older images that might be available, sold works. It allows a very concentrated experience. So I keep those two things kind of distinct and separate in your mind, and think of them as separate tools. And then, social media is another avenue for you to be sharing your artwork. But we think of our social media accounts as kind of the wide end of a funnel, for lack of a better way to think of it, where we're sharing artwork through our social media accounts, and it's going to a very broad audience, a very broad, diverse audience. They're going to either be interested in what they're seeing or not. But if they see it, I then want to provide a link to my website where they can then come in and, again, have a more considered and kind of structured experience, learn about my gallery, take a virtual tour, sign up for my email list, and be encouraged to come and visit my physical location. And so again, you're going to be using a lot of the same images, right? You may have an image of a piece of artwork on social media, on your website, and in your portfolio, but they're all going to be employed a little bit differently to attain their goals. And, they all kind of have their strengths and weaknesses.
The PDF that you spoke about, is that just current and available artwork that you're sending out to galleries, or is it a retrospective as well, or?
Primarily available work. I might suggest, again, as we're thinking about maybe 20 to 25 images, I might suggest that you go ahead and include 3 or 4 images of sold work and clearly mark them as sold. That's a credibility booster. A gallery owner is going to respond to that. Oh, well, here's some sold work. That's impressive. But primarily, we would want to have a selection of work that if the gallery was interested in representing you, they could choose those works and you could provide those works to them. We do not want this to be a retrospective. This is not this portfolio that I'm talking about is not really something that we're showing to museum curators or that kind of thing. We really want to focus on a very narrow, again, cohesive body of work that would be appropriate for the venue that we're showing it to, and that would not lead to confusion about what your artistic style is or who you are as an artist, but that is very, again, very, very cohesive.
Yeah. That's amazing advice, everybody. I think that's fantastic. And it's so easy these days with programs like Canva to create something that's quite even customized to that gallery, like pop their logo on it in the front page. Like, you're starting to build that relationship, put your name, is that wrong advice?
Well, there is that opportunity, but we have to be a little bit careful. And the flip side of this is that we haven't talked about yet. If you're thinking about showing your work to galleries, the name of the game, and perhaps the most important factor, is to get your portfolio out to a tremendous number of galleries. One of the biggest, I'm just going to say it, the biggest mistakes that I see an artist who wants to get into galleries making is that they'll get a little bit too precious about the process, and a little bit too, naturally you're going to feel a little bit nervous about it. And so I'll have artists come to me and say, Jason, I'm giving up. I guess I just can't show in galleries. I've shown my portfolio to galleries and they're not interested. And I'll say, oh, really? I'm sorry to hear that. How many galleries have you shown your portfolio to? And they'll say, oh, gosh, I must have shown it to 3 or 4 different galleries and none of them were interested. And my response to that is, oh my goodness, we need to show it to way, way more galleries than that. If you were at an art show and 3 or 4 people came into your booth and that was all that came into your booth and you didn't sell anything that day, you wouldn't say, well, I guess there's something wrong with my work. I must not be a good artist. You would say there weren't enough viewers of my artwork. This show was not well attended. I need to find a venue that has more people seeing my artwork. Well, those very same kinds of numbers come into play when we're showing to gallery owners. Gallery owners are human beings, just like your collectors are. And some of them are going to find your work appealing and some aren't. It's personal opinion. It is not a reflection of the quality of your work. And so my suggestion is that if you're getting serious about showing with galleries, you should build a list of 100 galleries that you want to present your portfolio to. Do some research, build a nice long list, and commit to send your portfolio, or if you can visit in person, to show the portfolio to the gallery owners to those 100 galleries. And by having that kind of mindset, you probably won't have to show to every single one of those 100 galleries before you get a response. But having that mindset makes the whole process much simpler for you emotionally. Because now when a gallery owner says no, you're not going to take it as an earth-shattering critique of your work. You're just going to take it as part of the process, and you're going to keep going until you can find the gallery that is interested in your work. And so circling back around, my concern then is that we want to be, if we're thinking about customizing the portfolio for each gallery, we're going to be too caught up in that process, and it's become too laborious for us to start to get up to the numbers that we need to get to. So I would create a professional, high quality, good looking portfolio one time. Obviously you're going to update it over time as work becomes available, but then my focus would be on just getting it out there and getting it to as many galleries as you can, and kind of having a process where you have a template email if you're sending them via email, or you have a kind of script that you're following if you present it in person, and then just doing that over and over and over again. And by pushing through and kind of playing those numbers to your favor, you're guaranteed to find gallery owners who are interested in your work and excited about showing it.
Fantastic. I love that advice. Thank you so much. That's fantastic. I tend to overcomplicate things and try, but just, you know what? Just keep it simple,
keep
stupid,
it simple.
right? Yeah. And Walt Disney went to 300 banks before someone said yes. Can you imagine if he gave up after 1 or 2 or 3, No.
Yeah, and you're not going to give up after you've shown your work to one customer or one gallery owner. We just have to keep pushing forward.
Yeah. I just want to help Karen here a little bit. She says, hard for those of us who live in small towns and find those gallery contacts. So
Karen, Google is your friend. And again, we're fortunate to live in a time where, yes, we have the research resources, but we're also fortunate that the logistics involved in shipping artwork and getting artwork over distances have become much simpler. And so, as an artist that's living maybe in a remote area or small town, it is more challenging. But it is certainly not prohibitively so. And, I work with a lot of artists who, like you, maybe don't have access to a great art market right around the corner. But, when you're sending out an email, it doesn't matter. They don't even need to know necessarily where you are. They just want to look at the artwork. And, as you find representation, we can overcome any logistical challenges that might come your way in terms of distance.
Perfect. And just for clarification, Mary, similar to a lookbook, but yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. We can call it whatever we want, but in essence, it's a self-contained book of your artwork that you can very easily share.
Okay. So I want to set everybody a challenge here that's looking for representation to send, how would you stagger that 100? So if you made your list, you've got 100 galleries, 10 a week, email 10 a week and just see what happens, and then change the approach.
Let me make it even just slightly more challenging for us, but not in a bad way, in a good way. And that is that not only am I going to have this nice long list, and yes, I am going to kind of think about, okay, what time do I have available to me? I'm still creating, so I need to budget my time to be able to be persistent and consistent in my approaches to galleries. And not only am I going to be sending out to these 100 galleries, which you'd say, okay, that's pretty easy. I just blast out 100 emails. But it's slightly more complicated than that, in that not every gallery is going to respond to your first contact. And so I need to do follow-up. And so that means I want to come up with a regimen where I am maybe sending out 5 a week, 1 a day, weekdays. And then the following week, I'm going to send out 5 more. But I'm also going to follow up with the first 5 that I sent out to with just a quick reminder email. I sent you a portfolio. I'm very interested in showing in your area. Your gallery looks great. I would love to have an opportunity, and do that follow up. And what I found is that if you've got that long list and you are persistent in that follow up, that's where you'll really start to get responses.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it shows.
Don't let them ignore you.
No, it shows commitment too. It's like, oh, this person's a hard worker. They're following up. They're diligent.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of those things. A lot of people, a lot of big companies that are employing people will ring up and go, hi, I'm looking for a customer service role. And they'll intentionally be like, the employer would intentionally be rude on the phone and go, you know what? Nah, I'm not interested. And they hang up. If that person then rings back and goes, oh, I'm sorry, I might have got the wrong number. You know, oh, this person, you know, it's actually the first test.
Well, and again, I see that with my clientele as well. I'm not, yes, there are times when someone walks into a gallery, sees something, loves it, pulls out their credit card. But if those were the only customers I was selling to, I would not be in business. You know, there are so many of our sales where we have to show that persistence and, you know, send follow-ups and images and pursue. And so, you know, that repetition and being professional and persistent, it sounds like a lot of work, but once you get into a rhythm and a habit of just living your life that way, your professional artist life that way, it's not hard. It just becomes your mode of being, and ultimately, it's that persistence that's going to lead to the success.
Yeah. And I really want to encourage people to change that mindset as well. You're not being annoying. You're just helping people find the information they need and to share your artwork. And legitimately, people miss emails. I do it all the time. So,
Yeah, we're busy.
Just help me out. Send me a reminder. You're not annoying me.
And if we do annoy someone, guess what? They'll let us know, and then we can stop and move on, and it's cost us nothing. So just let's not be too concerned. It's not as if they're going to send the police after us or something like that. They'll just let us know, hey, please stop bugging us, and we'll say, fine, thank you, and move on to the next gallery.
I want to mention your blog, Jason, because there was a beautiful example of you being persistent and thinking outside the square and going above and beyond what the customer would expect to get a sale. And it relates to how you photoshopped your dad's artwork, your desert landscape, onto the client's wall to actually give them an example of what it would look like in situ and also scale. So we'll pop a link up to your blog. It's a great article. There's so many amazing articles in there that are just very concise and helpful. I've really enjoyed just browsing a few. I think I only got up to page 4, and there's 84 pages on the blog. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yes, and in fact, for your audience, that would, you know, if you're kind of interested in learning what I'm talking about, that would be my suggestion. Is where to start would be to hop over to our blog. You can subscribe for free and get updates on you know, the art business. We do like you do. We do some broadcasts and talk about art and the business. And, you know, I hope that there's some just really valuable information there that every artist can find something that fits their career and, you know, take one more step towards achieving what they're aiming for.
Yeah, fantastic. I've got a couple more questions, if that's okay. We have been going over an hour, if that's all right. Janet has asked, Janet's from the Midwest, and she asks, when you present in person, is it also a PDF or actual pieces? So let's run through a bit of a role play. Someone's just walked into your gallery and they've gone, oh, hi, I'm Ange. I'm an artist. Could you please sell my work? Is that going to get you across the line?
You know, that's actually not too far from what I'd recommend if you have the opportunity to visit a gallery. And so what I would say is, you know, in answer to the question, I would start still with the PDF. If you've got an iPad or tablet or even just your smartphone, you can load the PDF there and have a very simple way to show some images. And what that does is allow the gallery owner to make a quick evaluation. Is this something that I'm interested in learning more about? Now, you're right, though, if you're there in person, you have the additional opportunity, if you're able to have some artwork available in the car, to then show them samples of the artwork. And you know, whenever possible, we've already talked about this being a relationship. And so if you can be there in person and shake a hand, or in the new pandemic environment, maybe it's an elbow bump or whatever. But, you know, if you can be there in person and start to build that relationship, it's certainly going to be, it's going to give you a better shot at success than an email, which doesn't give you that same kind of interaction. You know, as I've said, it's not always possible to be there in person, especially if you're in a remote area, and emails can work. But in-person visits have a higher likelihood of engagement and relationship building. And it's often the case that I've had artists come in, show me some images from a portfolio, and then maybe if they had some samples in the car, I can make a decision fairly quickly about whether we're going to show that artist's work. Or if they don't have samples of the work, they can make arrangements either for a studio visit or to ship artwork for me to see in review.
Fantastic. I think that's great. Yeah, just be brave. Go and talk to people. I think at the end of the day, we're all human. People forget that. We really do.
And you're going to be nervous the first few galleries that you talk to. It's inevitable, but push through that. And you'll see you're going to have some great experiences. And even the gallery owners that may not be a good fit or the timing might not be right, you'll be amazed how often they give you positive responses and encouragement.
Yeah. Have you had to take your gallery online during the pandemic? Did you have to close doors and then, because we're seeing that a lot here in Australia, like lockdown, that's it, show's over, online?
What I would say is I maybe wouldn't quite couch it that way because we were already online. And, very early on in our business, we pushed to have our full inventory available online. And over the last few years, we've shifted over from a fully custom website to using the Shopify platform. Which has been, kind of a real step forward to be able to have their e-commerce capabilities. And so, already having had that mindset, already having an email list developed, it allowed us, we had to be shut down for about 6 weeks last March and April. And certainly that has a devastating effect when you can't have new customers coming through the door. But our sales didn't go from, where they are typically to zero. We still were able to pursue and expose artwork to our clientele online. And we saw a dramatic increase in sales online. And I think I should mention here that in spite of the pandemic, our sales last year were only down by about 10% in total. And this last spring, our sales were up to the highest level for a 6-month period that we had ever had in our 20 years of business. And that was both online sales and in gallery sales. And so, it took a lot of investment of time and resources to get our website up and running and kind of to figure out the systems that we use and how we approach our online gallery. But boy, aren't we glad we made that investment when we did, so that we were able to, respond to a very challenging situation over this last year.
Fantastic. And congratulations. That's awesome news.
And to our artists. I mean, that it's not just us having those sales, but our artists as well. Yeah.
Jason, I don't want to be rude and ask, but it's come up in the comment section just about the commission percentage. Whoops, sorry. I found it's interesting to find out the commission percentage. It is financially right to go with that place or not. What's your advice for people? Like, what sort of standard I don't know if it's different to Australia or not, or other parts of the world.
In my research, there may be some minor variations by region, but it has become almost universal now that a gallery is going to ask for a 50% commission on sales. Now, that can feel shocking at first when you think about it, but let's go back to the beginning of this conversation where we were talking about the partnership that exists between a gallery and the artists that they represent. And certainly if you think of that commission as, if I sold this piece of artwork for $2,000, I'd get to keep the full $2,000. And now if I show it through this gallery, they're going to take $1,000. How does that make sense? I'm losing $1,000. But what we're not considering when we have that conversation is that that's not really what's happening. Instead, what's happening is I am partnering with this gallery and I'm handing them a big part of the work that I've had to be doing to generate sales. They're going to now take over the marketing and promotion of my artwork. They're going to be showing it. They're going to take over the sales and the logistics, and they're going to free me up to have more time to do what I do best, which is create the artwork. And so my hope would be that through that partnership, I'm actually able to create more value by creating more artwork than I would be able to if I had to be going to shows and doing all of my own promotion and marketing and sales efforts. And you know, I would just ask most of you, and this isn't true of every artist, but if I were to ask you which is harder, creating the art or selling it, I suspect many of you would say, well, selling it is harder. Well, it's exactly the opposite for me. I mean, creating is impossible. I love selling it. And so you can kind of see how we're partners made in heaven. I mean, that partnership allows us to both do what we're best at. And I wouldn't think of that 50% commission as a cost. I would think of it as an investment in allowing me to multiply my efforts and multiply my exposure and grow my business. And ultimately, I can show with multiple galleries and dramatically increase the base of people who are seeing my work and the sales that are being generated. And so I don't hesitate to talk about commissions, and I don't apologize for the commission that we retain from the sale of artwork. We work very hard for it and earn it. And I suspect that if you talk to the artists that I represent, I don't think you would find any of them grumbling or complaining about it. We feel like we have a great partnership going.
Yeah, fantastic. I love your attitude towards it as well. And I'm a firm believer that, 100% of nothing is not as good
right.
as something, isn't it? So yeah, and it's all again about that relationship and a collaboration, and it allows you, I love that about it, just allows the artist to be the artist. I think that's one of our philosophies as well, is that we really wanted to bridge that gap between professional artists who are artists and then taking away all that overwhelm with the tech, the sales, the editing, the filming. That's right. We wanted to create a beautiful product that was worthy of the artist, but we knew that was not always possible for everybody to do on their own. It's just
exactly
not. Yeah, so fantastic. Jason, a couple of quick ones. How long is work typically displayed for, and what happens if it doesn't sell?
Yeah, that's going to vary from gallery to gallery. In my gallery, both of my galleries actually, we're in seasonal markets. So I have a winter market in Scottsdale and a summer market in our Pinetop gallery. And so for us, the rhythm that makes sense is, well, we would want to have the work at least through a full season. And then, as our next season is coming up, talk about changing and switching over some of the work. Some galleries want to rotate work more quickly than that. Some prefer a longer period. My philosophy is that I want to, it's often the case that a collector may need to see a work multiple times. You may need to expose it to enough people to happen to reach that one that is going to respond. And so I don't want to be too hasty in constantly rotating artwork in and out of the gallery. And as artwork doesn't sell, typically what's happening is artwork is going out of my gallery and going into another gallery that the artist is represented in. And conversely, I may be getting some work from that other gallery into my space, and it's new and refreshed. And I cannot tell you how many times, we just had a situation this last fall where a large piece went from a gallery in Santa Fe to our gallery. It had been in that gallery in Santa Fe for a year, came to our gallery, and within 3 or 4 days, a collector came in, fell in love with it, and purchased it. Not because we are amazing and did something that other gallery couldn't have done, just simply because of the luck that was involved in the timing of it being there. And so it's fresh work to me, and that rotation of inventory can be a very powerful tool to keep your artwork fresh among your various venues.
Love it. Yes, keeping it fresh. Vicky's just came in late, but she asked a really great question. Apologies if you've already covered this. Jason, do you see the gallery as having a role in fixing the price of works? That's a great question.
Over time, yes. Certainly, I am having conversations with the artists that I'm representing. And, if demand is high and we're having a hard time keeping the work in inventory, that's a very natural time for us to look to increase the value of that artwork. And that happens quite frequently. But initially, when I'm first taking on an artist, I'm not typically giving too much feedback. I'll take what the artist suggests and we'll start there. and see how sales go, and then let the market kind of indicate to us where that pricing should be.
Yeah, perfect. Couple of last questions before we let you go. I know it's late. You've had a big day in the gallery, and we're keeping you talking, Jason. Thank
That's
you.
my pleasure.
I'm so excited. I'm very pumped. Yeah, I love business. I really do. Always been a little entrepreneur ever since I was a little girl selling flowers along the street.
And it helps to be entrepreneurial in this business, for sure.
There's always opportunities everywhere. Do you represent international artists?
Yes, we do. Primarily, if I kind of look at the range of artists that I'm showing, most of them are from North America. And part of that is just that I've not had a tremendous amount of exposure, but I have shown artists from the European Union before, and we've had some success selling that work. We have sold some additional work online for artists who are not necessarily in our physical gallery space. The world has become a much smaller place over the last several decades. And so the opportunities to be exposed to artwork from artists from around the world is exciting to people, and there are great opportunities to do that. So yes, you can definitely, as you're doing your research for galleries, you don't have to think about only your local area or region or even country. You can look for the best opportunities anywhere in the world.
Fantastic. Well, I encourage people, if they're watching, please send through your PDF to Jason.
There you go.
You never know.
Can't guarantee anything, but you never know.
Yeah, you just never know. Art Business Academy. You have given us some brilliant advice here, and I can only imagine that this is just scratching the surface of what's covered in Business Art Academy. If anyone out there listening is looking to go a little bit deeper and work with you more intensively, can you tell us a little bit about the Art Business Academy and what people need to do to enroll and how it works?
Yeah. So like I said, my suggestion first would be start by going to red.blog.com and signing up there. That'll kind of, you can kind of think of that as an introductory phase where I give you some insights into the broader business. What happened was that, I've been writing the blog now for over 13 years.
Wow.
And we would start conversations there, and I would write about my experiences and my insights into what I was seeing in the business. And inevitably, in the comments, there would be additional questions and then requests. Help me, help me figure out what I need to do to get my pricing going in the right direction, or tell me if my artwork is consistent. And over time, as my list grew, and we started out with several hundred artists, and then it went to several thousand, and then several tens of thousands, and it just became impossible for me to give, personal response back to every single artist that was requesting it. And, because every artist has a different set of circumstances, it forced me to start thinking more systematically about, okay, what would an artist need to be able to do to be in an optimal position to be ready to show in galleries and sell to collectors? And that kind of mindset led me to create my workshops and my book, where I could give some broad advice. And then that evolved into the Art Business Academy, where I can take it's a small group of artists that I take at any given time, but work personally with them to guide them through every aspect of what we've been talking about today, and many other minor issues that can seem minor, but are really important to have in place. And so you can go on to the Art Business Academy website. That's at artbusinessacademy.net. And you can look at the syllabus, and you can see the topics that I cover. And with each one of those, I give a kind of a video presentation, and then have an assignment where through those assignments, we're figuring out your pricing. We're building your portfolio. We're reviewing and optimizing your website. We're writing an artist's biography together. And it just kind of gave me that opportunity to give them much more personalized advice and direction that the artists who are very serious about jumping in and getting into galleries were clamoring for.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm so excited. I'm going to pop a link up to the Art Business Academy. This is what the front page looks like. This is what you're looking for, people. Start with the blog. We've popped the link up. And then these are your 2 books that you've also written as well, Starving to Successful. I love that title. So fantastic. Jason, I've got one last question for you.
I've got one last answer for you, Angie.
Okay, all right, cool. There's always one last question.
That's right.
Okay, I've always wanted to ask this question. Okay, you ready for it? Is there more art in business or in art itself?
Ooh. Of course, my tendency is going to be to say that the business is a real art. And that's, I think of my gallery and the relationships and the opportunities. I think of them as my masterpiece, right? This is the work that I'm building. But at the same time, I say that none of it would exist without the artwork that's being created. So I don't think that's an either or answer. I think my answer to that would be yes. It is both of those things. And, I just feel so fortunate that every day I get to come into a gallery and new artwork arrives, and it feels like Christmas, right? Here's this brand new piece of art. I'm constantly amazed by the creativity and the mastery of the techniques and the medium that are being used. And so I just love it. I love what I get to do. And I hope that by being proficient in what I'm doing, I'm also enabling the artists that I'm working with to pursue their dreams, to live the life that they've wanted to live. And the collectors that I work with to have the artwork in their lives that brings them so much joy. And so it's just, again, I feel so fortunate to be in this business where, everyone that I'm encountering and every experience that we're having is about beauty and art, and is joyful. And that doesn't mean there aren't some challenges and things that you have to overcome and get through. But at the end of the day, it really is about the art.
Yeah, fantastic. Wonderful answer. Thank you so much, Jason. I'm going to encourage everyone to write their thank you comments now. Jason, it's just been an absolute honor and privilege.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for the great questions and the conversation, and to your audience for their great questions.
Yeah, fantastic. And I know everyone would be just sitting there glued to their screens and not even, they're just fixated, not asking heaps and heaps of questions. But yeah, what we've answered has been really, really fantastic. I was going to say one last thing, but I forget now. That's right. I wanted to say thank you to one of our Fibre Arts Take Two community members, Melanie. She actually emailed me and said, "Hey, and have you thought about interviewing a gallery owner? I've been following Jason Horejs' blog and finding the information really fascinating." And so I was contacting a few gallery owners to talk, and then I came across you through Melanie. And so I just wanted to say a big thank you to Melanie and our Fibre Arts Take Two community.
Yes, thanks for making the connection.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, fantastic. I'm going to play a little video to exit, and then Jason, I'll say a quick goodbye offline. But thanks everyone for watching.
Thanks,
have an awesome weekend.